Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business of Business podcast. This is Roy. Thanks for joining us today. What our format is basically is we bring on a lot of a lot of different disciplines, try to get the message out, what they do. Sometimes as a small business, solopreneur, entrepreneur, it's a matter of we just don't know what we don't know. And so this is a great way not only to help myself in my business endeavors, but also like to share the message with you, the audience, because also this helps us if we do have a problem or find something that we need, gives us a lot of people to turn to get that help to be successful. So today we're going to talk about probably the one of the bigger topics that we've ever talked about, and that is happiness. And we're fortunate enough to have Vernon Brown with us. He's got over 15 years experience as being a trainer and a coach, and he is the happiness and success coach. He shows entrepreneurs how to leverage happiness to become successful, strategic, and influential both personally and professionally. So with that, welcome, Vernon.
Oh, thank you, Roy. I appreciate you having me. I appreciate people taking the time to listen. So yeah.
You bet. Yeah, thanks so much. And when I had read about you, and then we talked a little bit earlier, of course, we got carried away on the conversation because this is a huge thing for me. I just feel like happiness in our life, even when things aren't going good or when we're squeezed, happiness is such an important factor.
I agree. 7 years ago when I started this, everyone said I was a fool. Everyone was like, what are you doing a happiness coach? Get out of here. And now it's just like, I laugh about it now.
Sometimes that's how we know we're on the right path, when everybody's telling us we're on the wrong path, right?
Absolutely.
No, and it's big for me. I mean, through the day, it's not necessarily, like temper tantrum throwing on the floor screaming, but as things are moving through the day, if things don't work out, sometimes you have to take that extra time to reload that web page or redo this or whatever, and then it can kind of send you on that downhill spiral. So what are some things that we can do to try to maintain that happiness level even when things are starting to crumble around us?
That's an optimal question. I laugh about the webpage. I told you I was having some issues of mine, yesterday. Fortunately, things worked out. I think first, I think, 'cause I'm gonna answer that, but I think it's important to understand what happiness is by my definition, by what's your happiness definition. What makes me happy won't make you happy. Won't make your aunt, your mom, your dad, anybody in life. Happiness is such a subjective thing.
Right.
And and for me, regardless of whatever your happy is, it equates to the same output, and it's energy. Happiness for me is energy. Now, hear me out. I want to kind of explain the energy. It's when energy's low, concentration, focus, awareness, we get a little more irritable. They're gone. Like, excuse me, they're just through the roof. Like you just, it's not happening. You mentioned like with the webpage yesterday, I was like so frustrated, but then, I had to sit back and I had to reframe, right? And that's where the energy came from. It's like, what am I learning? And so that from that point, that's when, you kind of come out of it, and that's when the energy gets higher. So I think it's important, to kind of start there with that snippet.
Yeah.
Now, I think,
go ahead.
I think when it comes to happiness, what, some people can do and, can help a lot of people. And it's just from so many different clients, several thousand clients over the years, is just recognizing that you got to take some time for you. And entrepreneurs are notorious for not taking any time for themselves. They're like, I'm off. And they're on the phone and they're always checking emails like, I'm off. And they're looking up this and looking that up. Like, no, that is the first thing we got to do.
Right. Yeah, no, and I've got a wonderful girlfriend that, kind of keeps me on the right path with that, because I am that guy. I can follow, there's always some kind of a stat to check, something to follow up on. And, but before we even get off into that, I want to, kind of drop back and say that what you're saying about everything being in line is so important, because with me, I notice when I don't get enough sleep, that's when things start to go downhill. Don't get the exercise in. And I love to just walk because of the clarity. I'm lucky to live in a very rural place, so I can walk quietly, hear nature. It gives me that clarity. But when I don't get that sleep, and it's just like this morning, I had a couple tough tasks facing me this morning with some stuff, and I thought, oh, when I woke up, I was laying there thinking, do I even want to try to get up out of bed? Because I know, I know these first few tasks are going to be tough. But I finally got happy and said, you know what? I can do this. And once I got that happy motivator, man, I jumped up and got after it. And you know what? Things went extremely well.
Excellent. And you brought up such a great phenomenon that none of us can, say we haven't experienced. Sometimes you're like, I don't want to go to the gym, and you got to get your shoes on, you got to get in the car, you got to turn the steering wheel. You know what I mean? And it
Yeah,
sounds
right.
funny. It sounds like so funny, but that's what it feels like. But then
Yeah,
once you kind of get moving and get into action, all of a sudden, guess what? Things get easier. It's not as
yeah.
bad as you thought.
Now, speaking of the gym, it's funny. I was walking into mine not long ago, and there was a frustrated driver that was mad because they couldn't park right in the front door. I'm like, oh my gosh, you came to the gym to get some exercise, and now you're getting all upset because you can't park right in the front door. I mean, it was kind of, I know that it wasn't for them, but it's kind of humorous for me to think about, things that we kind of let agitate us. And I think that's the other thing that, it's, uh, my priest he's an awesome guy, just so down to earth. But you know what he told me a long time ago was that our minds are like grinders, and but they grind all day 24/7 while you're up, but we get to choose what they grind. And that's been such an important message for me through life, is to always, when I start feeling that way, I think, hey, you know what, I'm sitting here thinking about this or making it worse. It's up to me to kind of flip that switch. And I guess gratitude, first thing I do is look around and what am I grateful for.
Mhm.
I've got such an awesome life that really I'm having to relog into this website 5 times, and now I'm getting all bent out of shape about that. Look around, let's kind of put things in perspective.
But you said so many key things here, and I'm happy that I'm happy that you said this because a lot of people, everybody experiences this. When we get caught up in life, right? Like when things are pulling us and we feel like we have no give, it narrows our focus, and all of a sudden that parking spot seems like, oh, it's the end of the world. It's everything. It means everything. And
Right.
it's part of our brain that we need. We need to make sure that, we got to fight. We got to make sure that we're safe. But when energy gets low, it just ignites it and it doesn't see anything other than what it wants. And, I think the really big key point here is something I'm always reminding, audience is the powers in the questions. You ask yourself, what am I grateful for? Which is a fantastic question. Asking
Right.
yourself, what's really going on here? You know, um, the questions free us up because the questions open us up, and that's why questions are, it's my number one tool that I use every single day, the questions.
Right.
And you understand that this thing, when it gets upset, frustrated, agitated, whatever you want to call it, it's not bringing you close to what you want. It's doing what it's supposed to do with the energy. It's doing what it's
Right.
supposed to do with the energy, but it's not doing necessarily what we want it to do. And the questions
Right.
free you
Right.
up so you can see an alternative, right?
Yeah, and I think the other thing to this is that when we start getting frustrated, we have an unfortunate pattern of taking it out on others that are around us. So,
Mhm.
that's one reason why I try to keep myself in check, is because, I don't want to, I'm upset about something else that's going on. I don't want to come on here and, take it out on Vernon or whatever. It's not, you didn't have anything to do with it. You may, sometimes you're just the victim in the fallout from people. But I think if you have staff working for you, it's super important to be in touch with yourself. And it's not bad that you get that way. I don't think it's just more recognizing that you're going down that path, and you have the power to change that.
You're right. It's anger, whatever that feeling is that you find unpleasant. It's not bad to feel it. It's just
Right.
recognizing you don't have to stay there long.
Right.
People would come up to me and it's like, "Well, you're the happy guy. You're not allowed to have a bad day." And I'm like, "Bull butter. I'm not." Like
Right.
absolutely. I have bad experiences. Like I mentioned the website, I was frustrated, and it took me about 10 minutes. I used to have a quick story. I used to have a horrible, horrible temper, and I'm not proud to say this. We're talking 15 years ago. And I heard you use the word think a few times. What stopped me from having a bad temper was I realized I can't think and be angry. You can just be angry and you'll attack anybody who's near you. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like
right,
you'll attack anything because it's the closest thing to you. And
right,
when I
right.
recognize that, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not in control, and that's not cool.
Yeah,
But it's such an amazing phenomenon. The beauty of it is setting one of the things you can do to give somebody some strategies is I always let people know these are called positive brain breaks. One to
okay.
two, 2 to 3 minute brain breaks a day will change so much. Like even right before we got in the call, my son, we're on the home, working, and we're doing homeschooling and everything. He like drove me up a wall. And what did we do? We sat down and we started watching Moana. We started like, that's my movie, right? And we're singing, how far I go. And I forgot everything that was going on. But if you're having a tough time,
Right.
you strategically, and I encourage every entrepreneur to do things like that. Take a walk, ride in a car with your tinted windows and scream when no one's around just to kind of get that energy out. But those brain breaks can
Right.
be such
Right.
significant, impact. Listen to
Yeah.
Madonna, Who's That Girl,
Yeah,
when you're
that
upset.
one. Yeah. Well, that's important, for me, not only, and this is a twofold situation, but getting out and walking for that 15 minutes clears my head. And, I do have to say that my girlfriend gets, she's nervous when I come back from walking by myself because, like, oh, I had 25 ideas in this little 15-minute walk. She's like, oh my God, you had way too much time to think there. So, but what you had said earlier about taking a brain break is that I'd read a study not long ago, and this works for entrepreneurs as well as our children, that we are so scheduled from the time we wake up to the time we go to bed that we never take that little break. But that break is where we find our creativity. And I think the study was based on children more or less, but I think it applies to us that uh, instead of giving them that, like for me, I'm of an age that, we didn't have a lot of TV or we didn't have any electronics for sure. So when we went outside during the day, I mean, we had to figure something out, whether we were riding bikes, throwing a baseball, football, playing hide and seek or whatever, but we had to be a little creative in figuring that out. And unfortunately, we just don't give ourselves that space anymore.
I love everything that you just said. And it's something that, I really sat back, especially being a father, that really stood out to me. And it's everything that we needed to be successful and happy in life we learned as children. We need proper nutrition, we need sleep, we need to have fun, and we need to do new experiences. And there's many more, and we need structure, and there's many more things. But
Right.
when it comes to that space, and I love that you said taking a walk. I think Bill Gates was saying that the one of his the keys that he attributes to success, and I'm butchering this quote, but it was his walk. He learned so much.
Yeah.
And one of the things I demand actually entrepreneurs or my clients to do is you have to take thinking time every single week.
Right.
And you're like,
Right.
what do you mean thinking time? I said, you need to take at least 2 hours. I'm not saying you got to do 2 hours in blocks. You go take a walk. One of the things that I do is I lock myself in a room with my whiteboard, and I'm not allowed to stress. I'm not allowed to worry, but I have to sit there and think. It's because with business owners, especially we gotten into business because we thought we would be successful, right?
Right.
And so for us to get to the next level, or for us to create gaps, or for us to kind of work smarter, you need to think.
Right.
And it's a powerful thing. It's something that we used to do with kids. We would let them play. Adults don't play
Right.
enough. And when you're
Right.
not thinking about what's wrong and you're playing, you start coming up with all of a sudden these solutions. All of a sudden you start seeing different opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah, a guy I know that's a fitness instructor. He just told me this the other day. He's like, we see how we don't stop playing because we get old. We get old because we stop playing. And I think there's so much power in that statement.
George Bernard Shaw, wasn't it?
Was it? It could have been. Yeah, he just told me the other day, but I thought it's very good because that's right. I mean, we still, and we got into this as entrepreneurs and doing things so we would have spare time to do what we want to do. But then uh, if we work from can to can't, then all of a sudden all we've done is really we've just kind of bought us a minimum wage job that we
Mhm.
don't get that joy out of life. And I think joy is so important that, and the other thing, talking about joy is not let other people steal that. And that's And that's very difficult sometimes going through the day, is that, we have to protect that and say, hey, you can't take that from me.
Right. Again, so many key things you're hitting on. I just made a post about this, about every relationship is a chemical reaction. And you need to make sure, are you getting positivity out of your reaction? Are you getting platinum out of your interaction? Or are you getting negativity? Are you getting pessimism? Are you getting coal? And especially now with so many different things going on, I call it the great reset, not to diminish the tragedies that have happened, but to, recognize that there's a lot of time for us to grow even more right now. And that's what I call it the reset.
Yeah.
But we need to guard ourselves, guard your mind. Like when we hit it off, we had our call the first time just to see if like we're a good fit. We were like, oh man, got this idea, or we're gonna have a good time. Like when you
Right,
have that relationship like that, like picture having 10 conversations like that a day. Like look what
correct.
that would do for you. And it's
Yeah,
not just because it just fills you up, but look how much more you can give. Like, oh hey, no problem, let me help you, let me grab that door for you, let me
right.
do that. Like it feeds off of it.
Yeah,
And there's some people, especially with the holiday season, out and about, and it comes every year. I let people know there's some people that you need to feed with a long-handled spoon. You need to love some people from afar. I don't
right.
know about you, but I got a couple of them in my family.
Yeah, and there is nothing wrong. We have this conversation around our family a lot. Is that you don't get to choose your family you're born into them. That doesn't mean we love you less, but you're right. Sometimes long-handled spoon. I like that. I like that analogy.
I talk with someone and they're dreading the holidays, and I'll just ask them, I was like, so what's the time limit? I'm like, well, what do you mean? I was like, you're telling me they make you miserable, they judge you, and this and the other. You do realize it's like, since you don't have to stay there the full day, how long can you stay that you can show some
Right.
love? And they're like, oh, I never thought of that. I was like, now that you all have, how long would you like to be in misery? An hour?
Right.
You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
It's not to make fun of people because or somebody or but some people are in different places in life, and it might not be in alignment with yourself. We're all trying to figure things out. I don't know about you, but I didn't get the manual on life.
Yeah. Right.
And when people are trying to figure some things out, they can be a particular way that might not suit you. Now, what you just mentioned though is you don't have to be around them.
Right.
I mean, you can still love them. You might love them, but not their ways, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I challenge everyone, if you really want to see a significant impact in your life, this probably number two is your environment. There is no man or woman greater than his or her environment. If you
Yeah.
are in a negative, judgmental, critical place, it is incredibly challenging to get out of it. Trust me, I came from that.
Yeah.
But a lot of it started with how I conditioned my environment. And that started with watching YouTube videos, listening to songs, watching movies that made me happy. And it gave me the strength to take the risk, which was actually wasn't even a risk, to put myself in a better place.
Yeah.
Relationships.
Music is great for me too, and that's usually what I do when if I'm not just listening to nature, is turn on a little music, but it can really change my outlook immediately. Get a
Mhm.
good song, kind of get you moving, and I think it's that energy. It's that energy uh, that music can have on some of us. Not everybody feels that way, but I got some good advice. This has been years ago. And it was somebody telling somebody else. I just got to overhear it, but they were dreading going to their families for Christmas. And what this person told them was, don't go over there in dread. Turn it around and go over there with an abundance of energy. Buy little small gifts for everybody. Go in there like, she actually used these terms that go in there like you're the cat daddy, and you're happy, you're not dreading to be there. And it was amazing that this other guy that did this came back after Christmas and said, oh my gosh, it was a totally different experience, because I think what he said was the dread that I had to do this was what was bringing all this negative energy in. When I went in with that positive energy, had a little gift for everybody, like, you're not messing me up this year. He said it was a whole different experience.
Yeah, and you bring up again another phenomenon. You're like killing it today. It's
Yeah.
oftentimes when we and there's nothing wrong with some hesitations about going to an event, right? Because who wants to be in a past circumstance in the present? But it's recognizing that oftentimes the most sophisticated person can control the room. I used to, again, told you I had this bad attitude, bad temper, and I thought the world was against me. And it's like, no, it's not. It's not against me. And it was just a lot of it had to do with my attitude. And, even when it doesn't have anything to do with your attitude, you're positive, you're energetic. If you keep being positive with people, they either become positive or they leave you alone.
Right.
They'll say, like, what are you so happy for? I'm just like, give me 3 reasons why I shouldn't be. And,
Right.
and they're like, well, tell me 3 reasons why you are happy. And then they're just like,
Yeah.
well, something's wrong with you. Something's wrong, Roy. I don't know, something's weird about him.
Yeah.
because that's just how some people, I don't know, see the world, and that's okay. But that's not, for you. That's not
Yeah.
for me, right?
Yeah, and I have a little bit of survivor's guilt, I guess, because this pandemic, and like you said, I don't want to ever make light of it because it's been hard on people. There's people that have lost loved ones, people that have lost their job, their income, really hard times. But I guess I feel like I've actually kind of thrived a little bit during this because it has given me that extra time, like to get out, work around my place a little bit, to have that clear head thinking. But, also I just not on the run from the time I wake up until the time I go to bed. There's actually some time, and have we've actually embraced cooking. We used to pretty much eat on the run, but now we're getting in the kitchen, cutting up some stuff, trying some different recipes. And it's not only good togetherness time for us, but I've actually kind of found it a little fun and a little interesting to what you can create. So but I know that I know there are people that haven't had that luxury. So what about that? What's how people, like I said, I try not to be too bubbly about that because it's like, well, you never know the other person's situation, and I sure don't want to make light of things. But that survivor's guilt, it can be a kind of a real thing.
Yeah, it's I appreciate you being so open and honest about that, because this is a subject I talked about often with many clients, and um, just some loved ones. It's not for me, and it's not that it's hard to celebrate a lot of the good times, and how like you've experienced some positives on the pandemic,
Hmm.
for everything that's going on. And that's the way we might want to play small. It's why I'm just a big fan of everything I have going on. I've called it double down. Like, we need to double down and talking about the wins, because what's
Right.
happening is the wins are being overcast by the negative.
Right.
um,
Right.
and it's at the pandemic, I was talking to a couple of my clients and agents, and they didn't want to talk about their successes. And a couple of the entrepreneurs in the metal fabrication, they didn't want to talk about their successes with family members. I was like, you need to talk to them, you need to share these things, because right
Yeah.
now people are looking for hope. People are
Right.
looking for reasons to smile, and you turn on the news and you're going to find out 5 things that you need to curl up in a ball for. But you need to find that one thing, or that one person who's like, we can do this. And that's why
Right.
I've actually doubled down on my messaging, because people need to recognize we must endure. And we're
Yeah.
not going to endure sitting back playing small. We've got
Right.
to travel. We got to do some things where you can find strength in others' success, where you can recognize maybe that can be me. Because
Right.
oftentimes, like, we think playing small helps us, and it's not that we ever want to overshadow the tragedy. We don't want to overshadow the losses, overshadow the struggles, people losing their job. If people got all my clients, they're not all entrepreneurs, but there's a few of them that have lost their jobs. But guess what? We found better ones. Because if you're looking for the pain, you will find it. But if you're looking for the win, it's there.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
gotta look.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important even in normal times, is that, we go through the day and we have one or two things that maybe didn't go right or something went bad. And we can tend to focus on that instead of saying, what about the other 10 things that went extremely well? Yeah, I guess we just, I don't know if it's humans or conditioned as children, or I don't know why, but it seems like we can always focus on that negative instead of, there's one negative and we'll focus on that instead of the 10 positives.
Well, you right on the head. You
Yeah.
hit it. It's because this thing, this organism, was designed to keep us safe. It's not designed to keep us happy. And the negativity sticks to us like Velcro. Sticks to us. You don't even have to try. You don't
Yeah.
even have to try to find something wrong. But
Right.
positive rolls right off your back like Teflon, right? And
Right.
uh, it- we have to flip that switch, and you do it with practice. You do it around being around people who have something that you would like to have. Hey, I want to smile more. I want to have a big smile like Roy. I love that. And you got to be around people. And there's a few more things you can do, but we got to do that. It's, we have been taught to play small all of our lives. I'm a huge believer of that. You know, if you say, you know, people would say things to us like you're younger, like, oh, maybe you don't be too full of yourself or
Right,
don't get a
right,
big head. And over a
right,
while, I mean, there's a few more things, and I call those interjects that have taught us don't let little Johnny look bad, don't make him feel bad.
right.
And you don't want to make anybody feel bad, or get the sense of feeling bad, right? Or feeling small. But so we do these things under the habitual without even thinking about it. And one of the big things, like I tell people, you need to know 5 things that makes you amazing. There's many more about you that makes you amazing, but you need to know those and be able to step into those, because people are looking for permission to be more positive and be who they would like to be. But we got I work religiously to let people know what they're amazing at.
Yeah.
It
Yeah, and I
inspires.
think I think it's that's a good point to think about too. Is that we can be happy without being obnoxious. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't have to be I have to be mean to somebody else to rub in my success as my day, and of course not what what I was talking about. More or less, a lot of that's thinking to myself, but it's a good point. Is that sometimes some people have that tendency to they need to make people around them feel small in order to make themselves feel big. And I kind of look at it the other way, is like, what can we do to build people up around us, because there's enough room for everybody to be successful. It's not There's
Hmm.
not a limited number of winners and a number of and everybody else is a loser. We can all be winners and encourage each other. And you were talking about giving back and what we can do, but I think we have to finally accept we need to do things for others without expecting something in return. And I think that's what frees us, because it can't be like, oh, you know what, I gave this person this and didn't even get a thank you for it. Well, if we're going to give something to somebody, we shouldn't expect anything in return. And that's what frees us to be happy in our heart, not looking for that negative in that exchange.
Right. I want it's when we go through life, we forget that that person that we're connected to, that you might have given that gift to, that car to, that compliment to, we don't know what they're going through.
Right.
And sometimes it might take us a couple of minutes, a couple of hours, even a couple of days. You're like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. You don't know what a person is going through.
Right.
So many times it's just, and sometimes they don't know what they're going through. They can just feel like, I feel off. I feel weird. I feel they don't know. And
Yeah.
so they might not have the space to say thank you. For me,
Right.
it's like you just said, it's recognizing I'm happy that I was able to provide something to someone. I'm happy
Right.
that I did good. I'm happy because you'd be amazed at how many people, and I'm sure you had this experience where someone might come up and say, like, I am so sorry. I was not trying to be rude. They'll hold the door from, so you'll hold the door for someone. It's just a simple gesture, but they're not trying to be evil. Don't get me wrong. There are some knuckleheads out there. Don't get me wrong.
Right. Right. Right.
But looking at like right now with the pandemic, I talked to many people early on, and one gentleman, well, quick story here. One gentleman reached out to him. His company was going under, and he did lighting. He did AV lighting and everything. Speakers, all that good stuff. And his main clientele was colleges and universities. Now, I'm sure you saw that they were shut down at one point, and right now, even at
Right.
limited capacity. So 70 to 80% of his business is completely cut off.
Wow.
And he was so, again, rightfully so. My survival. I need to. I'm looking. I got. What do I do? And this is right, kind of our discovery call. And I sat there and I was listening to him. And with me, we can talk about what's wrong for about 5 minutes, maybe 10, but we're going to spend the next 50 talking about what we're going to do.
Right.
And he was saying, "Oh, people are dying. People are dying." And I just sat there and I looked at him. I said, "People are dying." He said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, people are dying." And then I said, "People are dying." And then his eyes started getting really big. And he's like looking at me. Then I said to him, "Where do the deceased go?" He's like, "Funerals." I was like, "Who's going to a funeral right now?" He's like, "Nobody." I was like, "Don't you think they need some sort of audio video?" And immediately he's like, "I gotta go." Click.
Yeah.
But you can see, I'm kind of touching back on a couple things, but I think the big thing here is it's easy to see the negative. Sometimes you need someone to listen to you and hear and repeat back what you said. And I do also want to touch on also something that you said about when you're around people and you hesitate on talking about your wins. I think this goes back to relationships where I never hesitate talking about the things that I have positive going on in my life because my circle that I intentionally set out to do is so happy for me. A buddy of mine, because I get energy from it. I'm like, oh man, oh dude, yes, you can do this. You got it. A buddy of mine gave me a call yesterday and he said, Vernon, I don't know if I can do this on my own. I've always worked for this one company. And I said, you can absolutely do this. You got it. Excuse me, this was Monday. He calls me back and said, Vernon, I'm doing it. I got so excited for him. So excited that is like, it's a win. And that they're like, if your circle wins, we all win because we've been doing this together. Who wants to go to the top of the mountain by themselves? I don't.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's important too that you brought up about talking things out, and I'll just put in a plug for why people need a success coach because we were talking the other day, and I'll just use this as an example about some changes I'm making to my website. Is I was just sitting there verbalizing some things, and all of a sudden it hit me, what I need to do, and so being able to talk that out, having that positive affirmation. Somebody that believes in you is not trying to tear you down. All that stuff is important to our growth. And, even if we're successful and we're doing good now, we can't be still. We have to always be growing, adapting, changing, looking to the future. And so, that's where I think the success coaching can help us become unstuck is like, we don't want to just live in this place where we're at right now. We want to continue that growth.
Exactly. We're all working on some change. I don't care who you are, where you are, however you measure that. I don't care if you're bringing in, 200K a month. We're all working on some change. Right. Now, with, in regards to financial success, just picking that, everything comes with a cost, right? And there's certain things that we got to make sure that we're talking about, that we're figuring out, and making sure that we're staying congruent with who we are. Versus what's coming, in alignment with what's coming in, and looking at just, relationships. You might bring in a lot of money and going there, but are you really working on the relationships? Are you nurturing those? Are you finding out other people who will challenge you? Because you don't want to be in a group, and you better be damn sure that you, apologize for using the cuss word there.
Yeah, you're right.
You want to be sure that you're around people who challenge you. You want to be sure who push you. You want to be, and not push you like to hurt, but to say, Roy, I know you can do better.
Yeah.
I was thinking about what you said yesterday, and I came up with a plan. You need to be around people who want you to just grow, and you do the same for them.
Yeah, I love the saying that if you're the smartest man in the room, you need to find another room. So let's talk about and success is like happiness, I think, and I'm glad you kind of defined this in the beginning. But everybody's definition of success for themselves is going to be different, and the money's nice, but health, relationships, happiness, being able to go to bed at night and close my eyes and go to sleep, those are all things that are important to me before we get to the salary. Not that it's not important, but so I guess that's another thing where somebody, a coach like yourself, can really sit down with an individual and say, let's define that. Because a lot of people don't think about it. They just, they've been brought up thinking that salary is the important thing until you really stop, slow down, and think about it. So, where I'm going with this is not, once we define that success, it's like, how do you find that people that are happy in their day-to-day life, for the most part, happy in their job, they tend to find that success faster, easier, and stay in that zone for longer? Would you agree with that?
I think once a person has defined their definition of success that's cohesive to where they have chosen, I think that's when they stay in that success zone faster. And I think the definition that I feel universally fits is, I'm borrowing this from Earl Nightingale. He said, any man or woman who's making progress in a direction of their choosing. And for me, that stuck with me because we were taught so young. I know I was, that you got to make a lot of money. You got to make a lot of money. Well, guess what? I made a lot of money. But then all of a sudden I realized, like, this is it, And it made me sit down and
Right. Right.
point,
Right.
and I'm like, what is success for me? And my definition of success, I
Right.
mean, granted, the metric that I use to measure doesn't change the fact that you need to figure out where you want to make progress in. And I'm such a big fan of relationships. Relationships are everything. I love being a
Yes.
father. I love my family, who's not my blood. I'm African American, but my mama and daddy number two are Caucasian, but they are everything to me. We talk at least once every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But relationships for me, that's success. Because no matter what, as much as people think they want to be on a yacht, who wants to be on a yacht by themselves? I'd rather
Right.
be on a little John boat, sitting, not going in the
Right.
water, but we're just hanging out. But that's success for me. But
Right.
making progress in a direction of your choosing is success for me.
Right.
So I do agree with that. I do agree with that as long as it's something that you have chosen.
Right. Right. So, what is a tool that you use either? Well, first off, before we get to that, can you kind of give us some pointers about how we can flip that switch? Some things that we can do in our daily life to try to regain our happiness or find our happiness.
Yeah, I think, to take it back to being a kid, if you're working on finding your happy, because oftentimes I ask audience what makes you happy, and I'll say what makes them happy, and do you know what makes you happy? And they'll say, everyone throws their hand up, 2 or 3 thousand people, and then and I say, wait, I need to qualify this. It can't involve buying or spending, it can't involve food or alcohol, and it only can involve yourself. 80-90% of the room's hands drop, and the last remaining few, I might point them out and grab a microphone, and they're like, well, I love being with my kids. I'm like, it only can involve you. So, and when people are like, well, what do I do? And I just let people know, with finding what makes you happy, it's to get curious. And that's what being a kid is about. Children are so curious. Why does it seem like once you turn 15 years old, life flew by you? Because when you're 8 years old and 6 years old, you were so curious about things. We didn't get into these routines, right?
Right.
And it's about looking to see what makes other people happy, what used to make you happy. We forget that what we used to do for fun and enjoyment. So get curious.
Yeah.
And if you're in a rut and you recognize that you're trying to shake it off, you've been saying it all along, go move your body, go take a walk, go drive and look around, just get out of the environment if you can.
Yeah.
Find something positive, that you can listen to. I'm a big fan of put yourself in a positive place by listening to some good music. Just like you said,
Right.
you love music. I love music. It transports me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you mentioned something, and of course we could talk for hours, I know, but the other thing that you kind of hit on there was when you tell people to define their happiness with themselves only, it's a good point that we have to learn to be happy with us. We can't find our happiness in stuff or others. And I went through this it's been 5 years ago now, downsized from, my kids were grown and gone, downsized from the bigger home to a small place, got rid of, you know, 30 years worth of stuff. But it was liberating. I mean, it
Yeah.
just, I felt like I found my freedom. I wasn't tied to just stuff. And it's incredible. People don't understand it, but there was something about it that just, I felt freer, but kind of, that's a little bit off track. But on the other hand, I think it's, you have to find whatever you can do to be happy with you before you can either be with other people, make them happy, or help them to find their happy place, or find happiness in those relationships.
Exactly. I love being with my son, but I also recognize one of my happies is cooking. And that's my time where I can just be in the zone, and it's for
Yeah,
me. I can do that by myself because
right.
I never want to anchor my happiness on my son. And I
Yeah,
never want him to ever get that sense that without me and him, I won't be happy when he
right,
becomes to be older, a young man out in the world.
right, right. Well, Vernon, so we appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk to us, and we will set something up to have you back on. Like I said, we could talk for more hours. But
I
so, what
agree.
is a tool that you use in your daily life? It can be professional, personal tool, habit, something that you do that you just couldn't do without.
Every morning, this is something that I've done religiously for probably 20 years, is taking a walk. Put my headphones on and I walk. And I don't, and the music is just there for background noise, but I just think. And it's something I do every single morning. Some days I don't feel like getting out of bed, like to your point, but I make myself. And this morning it was 28 degrees and freezing. But once I got out there, that is my tool. I love walking in nature. That keeps me centered. But
That's awesome. So
thank
yeah, and I just want to before we wrap up, I just want to say you're probably one of the most chillest guys I know, and then also you sitting there with the guitar in the background. I mean, couldn't be a more perfect setting.
I'm glad you noticed. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so tell everybody who's your customer, what do you do for them, how they can reach out and get a hold of you.
All right, so I'll just start off how you can contact me. It's what'syourhappi.com is my website, and it's happy with an I. Now, before you ask why an I, because you matter. But it's the I is there to wake you up. But you can also email me at vernon@what'syourhappi.com,
Okay.
VERNON at what'syourhappi, and it's happy with an I.
Okay.
Now, my ideal client is someone who seems a little stuck, who's recognizing that their energy is low, who's recognizing that they don't have the same concentration, the same focus, the same awareness, who wants to figure out what they are successful, but they know they want to be more successful in certain areas. But someone also who's willing to have fun. I think people forget to take fun out of the equation. Like if everyone thinks that coaching, I have some people get on the first call and they're like shaking, and I just let them know like that's not the way we roll. And they're like, "What?" Because to your point, like I don't do the high stress. Get out and do this. I don't yell at people. I would just
Right.
simply ask, what type of result are you looking for? Are you
Right.
getting it by doing the current behavior? So what can we do to adjust? What options do you have available? Because when you're having fun, everything that we do sticks faster, way faster.
Right.
But yeah, that's the best way to get in contact with me and the type
Okay.
of really cool, fun clients I'm looking for.
Okay. Well, great. And I'll post that contact information in the show notes as well
Thank
as
you.
on our webpage when we get there. So again, Vernon, thanks so much for taking time out of your day to be with us. I'm Roy. This is the Business of Business podcast. You can find us on all the major platforms: iTunes, Google Plus, Spotify, Stitcher. Also at www.thebusinessofbusinesspodcast and on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as well. So until next time, everybody be happy.